Good everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. So today I'll be talking about the Apex testing. Right now, Apex testing plays a very important role because, as you know, that right. I mean, if you are writing an Apex code, you can't push your code to the production without writing a test case, which is great because Salesforce makes sure that you write a better quality code rather than chucking in the garbage to the production. So today what I'm going to do, I will look at some of the Apex, the way to write an Apex test, and some of the best practices, right? So that's pretty much I want to talk about today. So what I'll do, I will go to the developer console. You can pretty much use a Visual Studio Code, right? So just to keep it simple, I'm just going to use the developer console. So we will create a one stupid class with a stupid method, right? And just closes all of it. Um, right, so we go here and we'll just say test some class, uh, maths class, right? Well, just got okay. So what we do, so we're gonna do public static, right? And we say um, integer, and we'll say add. I told you I'm just gonna do a very integer a, integer b, return a plus b. Yeah. Right. Okay. It's pretty simple, right? What it does is that you just pass on the two values. It will give you the sum, right? It's just very, very silly method, but just my main intention is to show you guys how to write a test method and write in an efficient way. Okay. Now this is great. So what happens is you can't push this code straight away to production because they will say okay. Where is the code coverage? Because when I talk about code coverage, it's often associated with the test class, right? If you're a C# developer, you might have worked with the unit test framework, right? And the concept of spirit is the same, right? So it's important that when you so if you have used a test-driven development, so you have to uh, build your test class first, right? And then you work your way around to write your logic around it. So I'm not really talking about that at this stage, but that's always a better way. So the way I do, right, when I develop something, I often keep the test class into consideration first. I often try to write a test class first, and then I'll think about what methods I wanted to include, and then based on that, I start build the actual logic. So this is like more like I'm not really a test-driven development, but I try to mimic it, right? So, and that really works well for me because it helps me to um, implement a test class with over 90% code coverage, which is pretty great, right? Okay, so what we will do a test class for this. So it's pretty simple. So you go to new Apex class. So what we do math class test. It's always good to if you're writing a test class, it's always good to use a similar class name and just append it with text or whichever naming convention you follow, right? So okay, now this is great. Now, uh, so this is a normal class. Now, to make this as a test class, you have to use an annotation, and that is at the top. If you use this one, is test. So this will be your test class. Now you see the difference here. This button is visible now. The run test when you put this is test. Now, if you take it off, um, so you're telling your Apex, the compiler to say, oh yeah, this is a normal class. This is not a test class. You see the button is invisible now, right? So now you put it back, and you just put it back here. Okay, so let's write some method. So what we do, so we will do is test. This is the way you annotate to tell the test class I want this specific method to be included as a part of a test run. So you can say static void, I would say add number, and we just say you just pass this code and just say integer. All right, so I'll just put it inside system.test.start test and system.test.stop test. So it's just going to do system.assert, right? And what do you do? Just use math class and dot add. So just went 1, 2 equals to 3. So let me run it. Okay, so what I've done, right? So I've created a method. Inside the method, it's very, very primitive test class. So which is okay at this stage, right? So what I'm trying to do here is that, I'm trying to see if the method works. And if the method works, so then it means that, it's pretty cool. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll run this test here. And I'll show you the code coverage at the same time once it runs. You can do that using in Visual Studio as well. So I'll let it run. Okay, so you go to here, so it's run. Okay, now look at the successful. So it's successful. It's all green, right? So you go here, and so you see it's 100%. So you run it, so it says it's running. Okay. So one thing you have to remember, right, when you write a test class, you should not only write the test class for the positive scenario, but you should also write for the negative scenario. Means you should write, say, for instance, um, so you might have a scenario where you know you might have where if you're having a big block of a code where you have if else scenario, right? So say just saying, let me say, just stupid logic I'm writing. Okay, just bear with me. If a is equals to 0, then return b, else. All right. So now, if you have something like this, right? So writing this test class won't do the job, right? Of course, it test add method, right? But it's not going to cover the every blocks. So let me run it again, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So whenever you do a code modification, you have to pen the test class. It's important, right? Because don't assume that, okay, if you're touching a part of a code, you need to go and look for the test class associated with it, and you have to test it. And that's the way you will come to know whether your logic is working, and as well as you're getting a code coverage. All right, so it passed, which is great because obviously it passed. But are we getting, say we're not getting, so we have shrinked this to 75%. So let me show you why. See, we are not executing this part of a code. So obviously the code coverage is shrinked, right? Now how to fix it? Okay, so we can actually write this one. I'm just going to do another test. Add number with 0. Yeah. So I'll just put it as 0, and I'll just put it as 2. Yeah. Okay. Now, so you're just going to run the test, and um, You see, it's doing a full coverage, right? So you have to, look at for the scenarios which takes care of, both the cases. Otherwise, what happens is that you're gonna, do a code and then expect, oh, okay, it's gonna work fine. No, it's not gonna work fine. So you have to pay special attention to that. Um, that's one of the things that's great. And now you also have to understand one thing, right? You might have to create a test data. So if that's the case, you always have to create the test factory. So I'm gonna show you that uh, in a second. Let me. So what happens is, let's say you have another class. Say, so for instance, you wanted to create an account every single time, right? Create an account every single time for a test. Say for instance, um, I have another class. Say for instance, account class, account main, right? And what I'm doing is that um, here I'm just gonna write a very very stupid logic, public static void, um, and update account name, right? So what happens? So this is gonna be this is will be the most silliest code, but let's say let's pick up any random account, right? Um, okay, you know what? Just say create account. That's fine. Update account, right? So what I'll do, so account A equals to, yeah. I'm telling you, this is just a stupid code, but I'm just getting a first account, right? And then I append. What I'll do is a dot name equals to a dot name uh, plus. I'm just gonna do with an underscore. Okay, that's all it is. And now say update A. Okay, so it's good to put in the try catch. Um, okay, so that's always a good practice, eh? Because you can't. This is not a great code. I mean, this is just a garbage code. But even in the garbage code, right? You should have some kind of standard in place. So that's why I'm putting a try catch, because you're doing an update, right? So if something goes wrong. Okay, so this code is pretty silly, right? So what it will do, it will get any account and then append the name with a underscore. So that's exactly what we're gonna test. All right. Now I'm gonna write a new test class for it. So I'm gonna do a new test class. So what we say, account main test. Yeah. Right. Now um, we can do in a very simple way. So we can do um, is test. Yeah. So we're going to do is test. Yeah. I'm just going to do static void. We'll say update account. So you can you can do I'm just showing you a way you can do, right? So you can say account A equals to new account, right? I'll just say A dot name equals to, I'm just saying test, yeah? And we can say um, insert A, okay? Now I'm just going to say um, system dot yeah. So we can do so what we do um, so we have already created an account, right? So which is pretty cool. Account main, and I'm just gonna say system dot assert. Just actually, you know what? Oh yeah, that's great. Um, so you can do not the assert here. I'm just gonna run account main dot update account, yeah, and you can just say account A equals to select name from account. Of course, the limit will be 1, and we can always uh, pretty much we can do system dot assert. Hopefully, this will work. We'll give it a try, anyways. Um, if not, then we'll see. All right. So this is called get. What's the problem here? Oh, sorry. All right. So let's run it and see what happens. Go here. Oh yeah, it passed. It doesn't have any issue here. So, which is correct. Now, what we do, we just go to the account main. Sorry, I'm just doing it slower just to make sure you guys know what I'm trying to do. So, see, this is something I uh, talked about. The way you have to write a test class to make sure that it covers all the scenario. Now it doesn't cover stack try catch, so you have to work on a scenario um, to break it, right? So now, so that's one thing that's pretty cool. Now, one of the thing you have to understand there, right, is that this kind of a code, right? It's not really a great solution. Okay, so for instance, if I wanted to create an account again and again and again, right? Say, uh, you can put it in the load test, which is fine, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying if you wanted to, not to duplicate it, right? Like this is uh, you know, this is just a duplicate code, because if I wanted to reuse it somewhere else, then obviously, I have to redo this again. So, which is not a great option. So what we do in that case, I normally come up with something called, the test factory, and which is pretty popular. I mean, we use it all the time. So what do you normally do is that you just go here and just put it as a test data factory, and as usual, so you have to annotate this with just say is test. Yeah. So if you do that, it's going to be so what we do. So we're going to do so public says a static account. So we're going to say create account. So I'm just going to do a name string a name right. So what we do, I'm just going to do select account. Just you can put in the try catch here, right? And try catch exception ex, yeah. And just going to do system dot debug ex dot get message, yeah. And just line it properly. So you can do account. Just please don't use a, right? It's just a bad naming convention. Just use it in the right way. So we do a dot name, right? Equals to a name. Okay, so insert a. Okay, return a. Okay, so that will do the job. In all right, let's see what's the problem here. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, now let's see what is the problem. Okay, so there is a return statement here, so we're just gonna say return now. Okay, maximize it. All right, now what I'll do, I'll take this test data factory here, and I will just do test data factory dot just a create account. Okay, and just put the name as the test. Yeah, and I'll just run it. So let's see what happens. Right, so that's successful, and let's look at the main. Where is it? So this one will not be part of the code coverage, right? Because this is a test data factory, but this is, you annotate this with this. So there's no code coverage, so don't worry about it. And account main, so you got code coverage, right? So the catch, you need to worry about writing that test case as well, so that it fails and catches the catch operation. So probably you need to do something to make sure that it fails in the update condition. Okay. So this is the way you can write tests, right? Because the reason why I prefer a test data factory, in my personal experience working as an architect and looking at different people code, I'm not pretty impressed with the way people write code, especially the test class. What they do is, I'll show you a very common example. Say, for instance, they copy paste this. Just an example. I'm just going to show you. Um, and even this one, right? Even this one you can do using a test factory. So if you knew that, right, you are going to create a data, right? So the data creation should not happen inside uh, this main test class. It should be done by test factory. Now, say for instance, if there's a update account on, and another thing, please make sure that you have a valid name for the test methods. Uh, I've seen methods like this. I'll show you the method. I'm not kidding. This is the method I've seen. Test one, um, test two. I like, what the heck is test one and test two? I mean, if you look at this code, right, you will say, what is test one? What is test two, right? It takes too much of time for someone else to, someone to look at it and try to understand, right? It has to have a proper meaningful name. So, your methods, unlike, it doesn't matter you're writing for a class or you're writing for a test case, right? You should have a valid, meaningful method name, right? That's a part of your coding standard, right? If you are not enforcing it, then I blame it on the person who's doing your code review, right? Because that means the person themselves do not have a good understanding of the coding standard, which is not great, in my opinion, whatsoever. So I was talking about the test vector, right? So if imagine if you have the code here, right? You remember the code before account A equals to blah blah. You had to copy paste in 50 places. It's just a mess, right? So if you wanted to change, say, behavior, so you have to go and change it in 50 different places, which is a total nightmare. So that's why just have a test data factory. You can control it using it one place, and it makes the life easier. And it's very easy to read, easy to test, right? Easy to maintain the code. So yeah, I mean, this is pretty much I wanted to cover today in terms of Apex testing. And one thing I would say, whenever you write a test class, aim for 90 and above, right? Please do not say, oh, okay, 75, I'm good to go. The problem is it might hit 75 in your sandbox. When you go to production, you might say, oops, it's hitting only 50, right? So always aim for 90 plus, right? So that will give you enough confidence. Um, and another thing is that there is an option called see all data. I think that's the one. Or see data. I forgot the data. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, um, okay. Now, if you have see all data equals to true, what this annotation means. It means that you can see your underlying data from a database, which is not a good practice whatsoever. By default, this one is false, so you don't have to specify it. But for whatever freaking reason, if you wanted to bring in the data from a database, then you can put that one. But I will not encourage you to go that route. Yeah. So that's pretty much I wanted to talk about it today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, learned something new on a test, Apex test out of things. That being said, adios.